Time to check in with Amanda Lang, CTV News Chief Financial Correspondent, and lots of business news this week. So, Amanda, let's stay at home first. Bank of Canada choosing to keep interest rates where they are. How would you characterize the statements from Tiff Macklem with respect to Canada's economy?
I mean, he's really underscoring the level of uncertainty, and that's been kind of the theme from the bank in its most recent statements that accompany their either movement on rates or lack of movement. And basically what they're saying now is there's so much that is unknown about where we go that they can't even really give us a balance of probability about what's going to happen. So that makes it pretty complicated. And I'll tell you one thing I was reflecting on, Aaron, is, the bank has a very clear mandate to fight inflation. And one of the places we've been talking about this, that we keep seeing it, is food inflation. And lower rates aren't really going to help with that. It doesn't actually make it cheaper to buy food when rates go down, right? Because we don't tend to borrow to do it. And the problems with food prices, that has nothing to do with rates, right? It has to do with supply chain and climate change and all kinds of issues that are very specific to our food right now. So the inflation fight is really kind of in some ways out of its hands right now.
But then there's the actual weighing on the economy. We have Stats Canada figures out, I guess, today. What are we seeing? The economy, I hate to use the word humming along because I think that's probably inaccurate, but it seems to be stable, for better or for worse. Is that for better or for worse?
I mean, it's a bit of a two-piston economy right now. I mean, you do have a bit of a stall in November, so GDP was basically flat. And we do see, though, gains in services, but big drops in manufacturing and especially durable goods production, big drops. And so that makes sense, right? So our exports, autos, everything that's been kind of slammed shut because of trade stuff, we're seeing that show up in the data. But our domestic economy is holding up. And so services, which is 70% of our domestic economy, are still holding up. And we are seeing some strong retail categories for retail sales. So I would say, domestically okay. Overall, this is sluggish, and we may well end up with a final read of a slight contraction. If we get a weak December, then you get a contraction in that end of the year. We might say technical recession before we're through. Okay.
And then, of course, we had the number out of the U.S., the U.S. Fed with their numbers again, holding steady, which I'm sure upset Donald Trump to no end. He's wanted to see interest rates cut. There's also the announcement today of a new Fed chair once Jerome Powell is done. What do you make of just that in itself?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely somebody who is seen as being very friendly to Donald Trump. Former Fed governor, so Kevin Warsh is seen as somebody who's been kind of in Trump's camp for a little while in terms of the commentary he's made around rates. There's a sense that he'll move to lower rates if and when he can. The only thing I would say is, and markets have reacted to this because market participants do not like the idea of political interference in the central bank because it can go so badly wrong. And of course what we mean by that is, if it feels good in the short term, but it causes massive damage to your economy, a huge recession, right? Overinflated asset values. These are all things that in the just slightly longer term will hurt everybody. So I'm going to remain confident that Kevin Warsh or anybody else who comes in as Fed chair actually will pay attention to the long term as well, although you might see rates come down a little bit to appease Trump because he's been so vocal about it.
So I'm going to bring up something that has been talked about a lot, and that, of course, is the humongous run-ups in both gold and silver up until today. And now we're seeing, pretty precipitous drops. I think gold, last time I checked today anyway, down under $5,400 an ounce, or $5,000 an ounce rather. Silver, down just 23%, literally in one day. I've read all sorts of opinions on this. People saying, there's physical demand shortages, at least for silver. This is a good long-term. I don't know if we can call it an investment or not. What's your take on this?
When you see a move, silver is actually extraordinary, right? 16% decline. This is momentum trading. This is overvaluation, and people are getting out. And when I say people, I mean huge block trades, probably done by computers. The gamble on these minerals has to do with, certainly gold has to do with a kind of a risk mentality where you're fearful about the world and people flock to gold as a result. It's not, there's no real fundamental value to gold. It's a very emotional kind of a metal. There's a place for it, but it definitely, I think most people would agree, it got ahead of itself. Similarly with silver, which does have industrial uses as well, so a little more of a fundamental backdrop. You can just say the valuation got so far advanced that you're seeing some profit taking here. I hate to use these cliched terms, but it does happen. And when you see this, the way the market works right now is because there's such massive amounts of computer and algorithmic trading, you see these huge swings.
Yeah.
You know, when I started watching the market, you wouldn't even see a 3% swing in a stock in a day. And now it's just routine 6, 7, 8%.
You got to weather the storm, I guess, if you want to get involved in this one. I would ask as well, the story that broke this morning out of nowhere, Donald Trump, I guess this is late last night, decided to tweet about Bombardier and certification for Gulfstream jets. What do you make of all this?
It sounds, honestly, the way that I'm reading this, I think he doesn't understand what's really happening. As far as I can read it, the Gulfstream the newest model has some new electrical components, and our aviation authority is within its rights, and certainly I think you and I would agree should take a look at it and certify it and make sure it's fine to fly. It's not holding anything up. It's not doing anything unusual. All the existing Gulfstreams already flying are fine. It's a process that we go through. The equivalent would be if Donald Trump got mad that Health Canada held up a drug because it was reviewing it based on our policies and our idea about what's safe. We are entitled to do this. Our authorities are entitled to review these things. And the idea that he would block Bombardier is, I think, foolish. I honestly, this is one where I feel like smart people ran into the room right after he did this and said, Mr. President, stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. But it's the back to Tiff Macklem. This is the uncertainty we're dealing with. He may not even know what he's talking about, but he can wreak havoc all the same.
Well, that's certainly comforting. Okay, let me move from that and talk about the other story today. And I brought this up the other day trying to understand what this meant because it didn't seem to me like it got a lot of attention. It's being called the mother of all trade deals. So this is the EU and China, and we're talking about 2 billion people here, so even bigger than China. Or I said China,
India.
the EU and India, right? Mm-hmm. Even bigger than China. And I wonder, how does this change? I think back to what Mark Carney said about the New World Order. This certainly seems to be a step in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to see more of this, and I think, however world leaders kind of responded to what Mark Carney had to say at Davos, this is the new playbook. I mean, he was saying out loud what everybody now understands, which is we all need to be very realistic and pragmatic. And, India is a complicated place because it has great potential for growth. It can be quite spotty in the rule of law, depending on where you do business and operate. And it is run by somebody who, Canada has run afoul of the Indian government. And, we have pretty serious allegations against Modi about activity in this country. So, not unlike China, it's complicated. The kind of geopolitical runs into the economic opportunity, but everybody's going to explore how you walk that line because we need to, because the U.S. is behaving in such an unfriendly manner. So we'll do the same. We'll cozy up to India in the same way, no question about it.
And the last thing I would ask, not really a business story, but with respect to Alberta and the big story yesterday, of course, being called out for treason by the Premier of BC. I'm wondering, as far as, Alberta's economy is concerned, what's the big beef here? Do you know? I mean, I know this dates back long before, obviously, Mark Carney, back to Justin Trudeau. What is the issue here? Do you know?
Listen, I don't even want to weigh in on it because it's so complicated, and I'm a Westerner myself, and so I grew up in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, so I can certainly relate to the idea that Eastern Canada or Central Canada thinks that they run the show and they don't really understand what's happening. Alberta has the additional issue that it was made to feel as though its abundant resources were wrong and bad for the last couple of decades. So we're reversing some of that, and I think everybody has to play a bit of catch up. It did also become the epicenter of kind of freedom and liberty around some of the COVID controls, and
right.
We know that some of that really landed hard, and people don't recover from that very easily. And to be honest, Aaron, I don't feel like they were ever apologized to appropriately either. The lines were crossed all over the place in moments of high tension. And I just think there's a lot of that lingering here, but boy, it looks bad when we got some, folks from Alberta heading down to the U.S. and exploring how the U.S. might help them.
Okay. The good news is I'm not going to ask you about Quebec separation, Amanda, so you don't have to worry. We're good.
I think it's probably better if I don't weigh in.
I'm going to leave it at that. Amanda, Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Great to talk.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.